Good day, everyone. It's Rob, CDN Freight Broker, coming back to you. It's been a while, and my apologies. Been busy with my business and focusing on things there, but figure it's time I got to get some videos out, and this is a topic I've been thinking about for some time. I'll make the quick point, and then I'll explain my thought process behind this. But right now, for the last several months, there's been a lot of discussion and complaints about the spot market. It's been weaker than normal, like not necessarily volumes wise, but the rates. A lot of carriers have not been happy with the rates lately. And obviously we had times 2005, 2022 and so in 20 where rates were really good. But back in 2008, the rates were, they had plummeted. So there's, throughout the course of time, the spot market in particular has been volatile. It has good times and bad times. But overall, as we enter 2025, everyone's hopeful that the market's going to turn and we're going to see some better rates. But the missing element, I believe, for the long-term success of the spot market is accessorial charges. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to take a step back and explain my rationale. So I always like to mention, instead of thinking of trucking, I like to look at the terminology supply chain. Whether you're driving a truck, rail, ocean, those are all part and parcel of the overall supply chain. We have customers and shippers and consignees that have raw goods and finished commodities and various pieces in between. So some companies are producing one gadget that contributes to another supplier's overall production of a machine, and they're getting this gadget from one company, or maybe they're getting it from 25 companies, all these little gadgets that they then assemble into something complete. So supply chain, when we stop and just take a 10,000 foot level look at the supply chain, say in North America, we have freight coming in from ocean, and that could be from Asia all the way through parts of Europe that are coming into ports in California, Georgia, New York, Seattle, Washington, in Canada, Vancouver, Port of Montreal, Port of Halifax are the common ones. So things come by ocean. They now are on ocean containers. They have to get by ocean container to either a cross-dock facility, and then they get the containers are de-stuffed. Either they're shipped as LCL, less than container loads, or full truckload, FCLs. And so this freight that comes in by ocean has to either come to a warehouse, gets de-stuffed, and then they put it on trucks to ship it to its final destination, or to a 3PL warehouse, where then it is further worked and brought to another destination. So all the carriers in the United States and Canada, that's where you benefit from. All that inbound freight and outbound, because shippers are shipping stuff outbound as well, has to get from a warehouse to a port and then out, or it's got to go coming inbound, whether by drayage directly to the consignee, or they work it and then puts on a truck, dry van, flatbed, and then it's brought to the consignee. So when you look at that supply chain, now I look at the word modes: ocean, rail, and then there's trucking. Now trucking is big in the North American market, because when you say carriers or trucking, that can be drayage, gravel, end dump, dry van, reefer, flatbed, double drop, RGN, LTL, so less than truckloads. And then we got heavy haul, over dimensional, and various other ones in there. Walking floors, there's a whole gamut of forms of trucking in North America. So now when you look at these modes, let's look at some of the commonalities. Ocean, rail, and LTL, less than truckload, within North America, all have their base prices, but guess what they all have in common? They have accessorials. In the LTL world, they'll call them tariffs, but essentially in the rail world, they might call it a tariff or an accessorial charge. And what a tariff is obviously a publicly denounced by each carrier. If you're a tariff carrier, it's on their website where it's posted, and it gets updated quarterly, yearly, the different accessorial charges. So there's always a base rate. Often there's a fuel surcharge, and now we start diving in. There's at ports, several ports require appointments. So the drayage carriers that picking up or delivering charge an appointment fee. They charge, let's say, when the ocean vessel arrives at a port, there's only 1, 2, 3 days. So you'll always see on the reports, LFD, last free day. So the containers have to get out of that port before demurrage begins, where the port's going to charge storage fees, the ocean line steam company is going to charge storage fees. So it's in the best interest of the consignee, whether the freight arrived in Los Angeles and has to get to Minneapolis, Minnesota, but they need to arrange to get that freight out of that port before the last free day and stop incurring charges. But sometimes I've experienced it where the vessel arrives on Friday mid-afternoon and they still have to unload it. And then with the timing, they have to get that out, and it doesn't always work that they can get it direct to the consignee. So drayage carriers, if you need to get it out of that port and they need to store it at their yard, that's called a pre-pull. There's a fee for that. So there's fees for appointments, fees for pre-pull, waiting times, etc. So there's all kinds of different charges that the ports have, the drayage companies have, rail companies. Rail companies charge for everything. If they load a container that's going to go on rail from, say, Seattle, Washington to Atlanta, Georgia, or going from California to Pennsylvania, if they get loaded and they need to reweigh, they're going to charge that reweigh fee. If it's on the container and there's issues, they're going to charge fees for there. So there's a whole gamut of fees that are charged by ocean, drayage, and rail companies. And then LTL companies, the less than truckload carriers, also have tariffs or accessorial charges. They charge for, you need an appointment, they're going to charge you a fee of anywhere from $15 to $35. Okay, you want delivery at a limited access facility. You're going to say, well, what's limited access facility? Well, a limited access facility is an additional fee where basically carriers are imposed when picking up or delivering freight at locations that require more time and effort. These locations are known as limited access. So it could be places that are not often open during public normal business hours, sites where security inspections are required, sites that restrict vehicle access. So again, ports, if you don't have a TWIC card, you have to hire an escort to take you into the port. Or it could be an Army facility, needs a TWIC card. If you don't have a TWIC card, you need to hire an escort to bring you in there. Locations where personnel are not readily available to assist with pickup or delivery upon arrival. So that's where simple things like they'll use examples of churches, hotels, golf courses, museums, self-storage facilities, because often you'll get, say, some shipper is a smaller shipper and they got some warehouse that's not operated all the time. They'll say, have the driver call me 30 minutes before arrival and I'll meet them there to unload. But take some of the big distribution companies. Many carriers have been there where you got to check in at security, then you got to bring your paperwork in, then they tell you, go here, check in over there, then they'll assign you a dock and you have to wait at some designated waiting lot. And then when they give you a buzzer or text you, then you go to the dock to get unloaded. So even though it's a facility that has docks and it's moving freight all day long, but it's not as simple as when the driver picked up the load, he or she was assigned saying, okay, you're picking up at the warehouse A in Houston, Texas, and you're delivering to a warehouse in Chicago. When you arrive, you have an appointment 10 a.m. at dock 11. So you just show up back into dock 11 for 10 a.m. You walk into shipping and boom, they say, hey, well, how are you doing? You hand them your bill of lading and they start unloading you. That wouldn't constitute a limited access. But you take a regular warehouse where there's 50 doors, all these check-in procedures, you got to do all this stuff, back in, slide your tandems, that's fine. But if there's any of these things where you have to do multiple steps to get in, it's not as simple as just showing up and getting delivered. Technically, that could be constituted limited access. So where does this bring my original thought process is the missing element for the long-term sustainability of the spot market is accessorials or tariff charges. And what I mean by that, right now, COVID was a time period where a lot of owner-operators, drivers who were company drivers, they heard about the spot market getting paid very good money, so they went out and they bought a truck. So they have a truck note, $2,500 to $4,000, depending on how much money they put down. Either they bought a trailer, and they either created their own authority, or they signed on as an owner-operator with a carrier. So when they do all this, so a lot of these drivers, they came in with 3 to 5 years of driving experience, at least in my experience. And they're coming in, so they went ahead, bought a truck and maybe a trailer, or they signed on, so they're getting a percentage of the load. In some cases, the drivers are self-dispatched, some are not. But the point is, a lot of drivers have bought trucks, entered the spot market working off of load boards, but they've never been in dispatch, they've never done sales, they've never done operations. Now, you don't have to do all those things to be a successful owner-operator, but if you worked somewhere before you were a class 1 driver, and you worked in sales or you worked something in operations at some point in your career, it's going to be huge because now you know how to talk to people better, you know what to ask, how to ask questions. But if you've always just been a driver and never worked in any other aspect, and then you just went and bought a truck, I find that you're a few steps behind. So the point is, in the last 5 years, it's been pretty easy for both brokers and carriers to get into this industry where getting customers is hard, and that's a separate topic from today. But the point is, a driver can go out, buy a truck, sign up as an owner-operator, create their own authority, sign up to a load board, and start booking freight. Whether it's good or bad paid, that's another topic. But the point is, pretty easy to start booking freight. If you want to work in drayage, you have to get yourself not just you can buy a truck, buy a chassis. That sounds simple. But now you got to be approved at the ports. You have to find people who can, you have to spend time building relationships. You have to understand all the charges that go with the port industries. If you want to get into intermodal drayage, same thing. You got to build connections. It's not as simple as you can't just go on a load board and find intermodal drayage. There are some drayage on load boards, but it's not as much as dry van and flatbed. So the point is that I believe the missing element is it's been so easy to get in this industry, it's not complex enough. And you're going to say, well, we don't need it complex. We just need the money and go. But that's the point. A lot of times you'll hear drivers say, I don't go to the Northeast because of all the tolls. I don't go to the Northeast because there's not enough truck parking, or I don't go to these areas for different reasons. So let's take a step back. And if you take a load where the broker says, okay, I got this load for you. And you say, okay, the rate sounds reasonable. It'll be nice to get a little bit more. By the way, it picks up at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. tonight. Okay, I can make that work. Now they say, based on the distance, it has to deliver not that same day, but say it's a 2-day drive, but they want you to deliver at 3 a.m. So now you're picking up after traditional hours, because carriers do work a lot of hours, and suppliers, shippers, consignees, brokers, everyone in the supply chain expects drivers to just pick up and deliver upon their demand. But that's the missing element. So imagine when you're discussing a rate and just instead of just saying this load is worth 1,000, but I want 1,200, or this load is worth 2,000, I want 2,400, and you say I need 2,400, and they're saying, well, I can get 2,050. Hang on, what if it looked like this? You can't. Everyone in the sequence of events that are connected to a load have to think more. They can't just say a price and negotiate $50 here or there. Let's start with the basics. So you take a load, does it deliver or pick up outside of normal business hours, like 8 to 4:30 or 8 to 5? If the answer is yes, now you've got basically an early AM or an evening pickup. So there should be an evening pickup fee. Delivery, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m. That means early AM delivery. If the carrier, the driver is expected to call the consignee and book the appointment, that should be an appointment fee. Here's some other things. Now, many people will say, well, I expect the drivers just to know what charges they have for a load. That might be fair, that the drivers are supposed to know. And there's some brokers that will know, but I'll tell you what, any new brokers, probably if you ask them, if they say, well, yeah, I pay $1,200 in this lane. Okay, let's break down those charges. Most brokers, if they're new, couldn't do it. How much did they budget for gas, the fuel, the diesel? How much did they budget for tolls? How much did they budget for the driver's time to load and unload, or appointment times? Truck parking. So that's another one. So let's take a load where you can pick up 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so fine. But the way they want you to deliver It's going to be, say it's a short run, 250, 300 miles. So they want you to deliver 7:30 or something like that in the morning. Now you're going to get to the truck stop, say, because you need your 10-hour break or 8 hours in the cab. So let's say you're going to get to the destination, hypothetically, 10 o'clock at night. Okay, so that you get your enough sleeper time so you can get up, do your pre-trip, and be at the consignee for the designated 7:30 time or something. But here's the kicker. You're going to a city, could be somewhere in Ohio, Pennsylvania, that is very busy, and the truck stops get filled up. So if you're going to arrive at 10 o'clock at night, you're now going to spend the next 45 minutes to an hour going from one truck stop to the next, trying to find an open spot to park. So in order for you to be successful, most drivers are going to say, well, I'm going to have to bite the bullet and call the truck stop or go online and book a spot and pay the $20 or whatever it is, $8, $15 to $25, so that I have a guaranteed reserved spot. So when I arrive at 10 o'clock at night, I can park, sleep, and then proceed for the next morning. But when that occurs, you should be compensated for that. So there should be a truck parking fee that's associated with that load. So all these little, we can get into a discussion about this, because I didn't want to make a video with a whole bunch of things. Just the point is, and you can put some comments if you think this is useless and this is not a good idea, but I believe bringing some complexity to the spot market will force those that are just trying to make a quick buck. They actually have to think about things. The prices, we're all talking about broker transparency, and that's a whole nother topic, but the point is, there should be some, like if you're doing a load where we know the notorious coming out of Florida is $1 a mile. Well, if you're doing $1 a mile, but they want you to pick up at 3 a.m. or picking up at 10 o'clock at night, there should be an extra fee on top of that. They want you to deliver early a.m., an extra fee, etc. So that $1 per mile now starts adding in. So now the negotiation isn't just about the total price. You're negotiating all the aspects of the load. And then in time, as you work with certain brokers more often, you can negotiate different things. Let's say there's some shippers, you've been there 10, 15, 20 times. You have a track record where you've documented load after load. They always take 3 hours to load. So now that's where you can negotiate the broker. Hey, I'll give you the 3 hours. You cover this cost, and so forth. But at least we're discussing it. Right now, none of that happens. We're still in this mode right now where a lot of brokers want to work by email only. There's a flat price. But imagine if the load board, when the broker posts it, they have to post and list all the accessorial charges related to that specific load. So obviously, we know flatbed drivers are getting compensated for tarping. Sometimes probably not enough, but there is a tarp fee. But any other oddball stuff like that, wide loads, like when you do heavy haul, they do break down the charges. There's pilot vehicles, different things of that nature, wide load permits, the permit fees, etc. But if you're going to, the limited access ports, military, any facility where it's not just show up and get delivered, it could be some kind of, even if it's a big distribution company, but they just have layers of complexities, like you got to check in here, do this, then come out, bring your paperwork here, then they're going to let you do this, and then you check out. When there's more than 5 or 6 steps to get in and out of a facility to get loaded, that's a limited access in my mind. And so all these little things we should be compensating. So now some of the carriers who are hesitant of going to the areas with tolls, knowing they're getting all of their tolls covered, the fuel, they know that the truck parking is getting covered, etc. It opens the door for more negotiation and opportunities for lanes that drivers felt, hey, I'm not being properly compensated. So if we bring a little complexity and accessorial charges to the spot market, to me, that's the game changer, because we might see rates go up, we might see rates come down. Yeah, even if we were to tomorrow, like January 1st of 2025, accessorials become a requirement in the spot market, it's not necessarily going to change the entire market right away. There's still going to be the supply-demand factor, because if you're sitting in a city with 50 loads and 100 trucks, that's, you're not going to get, it's in the shippers and the brokers' hand at that point, because there's more trucks than loads. But if you're in a market where there's 100 loads and 50 trucks, then the power is in the carrier. So the supply demand is always still going to be there in the spot market. But knowing that these accessorials, because we've all heard about it, where if it's you get the load and then you find out, oh, it's a late pickup, it's an early AM, and all these finer details. But when brokers have to think this through and provide extra costs to cover the carriers, plus the base, plus the fuel, I think it's going to reduce the stress that carriers can have, because carriers are required that, hey, at the end of the day, when you do a load where you're getting paid $500 to $2,500, you have to pay your tolls, you have to pay this. But when you know that it's on the load confirmation, that all these charges, there are a few carriers that do this where they break out the charges. I'm not saying no one doesn't do it, but I'm just saying majority of the people, it's all flat charges. But if we have to actually break down the charges, think more, brokers have to think more, carriers have to think more, and then shippers see all these extra charges when they start saying, why are we paying truck parking? Well, you want the driver to pick up at this time. He's going to arrive late. He or she's going to arrive late at the truck stop. To make your delivery appointment, we had to compensate the carrier so they can pre-reserve a spot in a truck stop area which is very tight. Oh, well, what if we just extend the day of delivery? Then we'll take that charge off, right? So that's the point. Everyone is starting to think, and if they see early AM delivery charges and so forth, why are we getting charged that? Okay, well, we'll make these appointments. Sometimes they'll say, yeah, we'll pay for it. Some shippers will say, we'll pay for it. We need that product at that time of day. Great. Some shippers might say, if we're getting charged an early AM for 25 trucks a day, 5 days a week, they might realize, that's going to cost us a lot of money. So I'm not saying it's going to be everything, but exposing all the costs so there's a bit more transparency on the hidden costs that aren't discussed in the spot market could be the game changer for the longevity of the spot market.